All right, YouTube, I'm actually redoing this video because I tried zooming out to make it, because sometimes I notice when I move things around, I might move it slightly off camera. But for some reason, I've got a Galaxy Note 20, which has a phenomenal camera setup on it. But when I zoom out, it was making the videos kind of grainy and didn't look as good. It almost made it look like low def, even though it was still coming up processed as 1080p. So I don't know what was going on with that. So I figured, you know what, let me just redo it. So what we've got today is the SOG Kiku XR. Comes in a simple box, no real instructions or anything, just a spare pocket clip. You say, well, why do you have a spare? Well, the way the handle's curved, this wouldn't flip. It would be going, see how it kind of goes with the curve? Here it would be going against the curve and hanging off the edge. So they gave you one that has a different angle that's the opposite. And it's kind of cool. It just slides into that slot. If you can see right there, there's a slot. It would slide into that, and then you would just take the two screws from here and put them on that side. So pretty cool. Anyway, let's get into the specs. It's 3 inches on the blade. The blade is 0.15, so roughly an 1/8 inch thick. It is CTS-XHP, which is considered a premium steel. It's up there in your S30V and S35VNs. It's up in that range. It's a good tough steel. SOG is historically used like VG10, which is a good steel, but people say under hard use it chips, can chip. So they switched to that. Micarta linen handles, thick, very strong liners. The overall length is 7 3/4. As I mentioned, reversible pocket clip. It is using their XR lock, which is, you know, like Benchmade has the Axis lock and stuff like that, and other companies, Steel Wheel has the Ant lock. They say this is rated for 1,500 pounds of pressure before it'll break. It's beefy. It's a strong little knife. So we'll go into it. So I haven't had that many SOGs. I've got a Vulcan fixed blade with VG10, which is a really cool blade, really neat shape. Kind of outdoorsy / tactical type blade. Kind of like a smaller version of a survival knife. It's a neat knife. I've had their Flash 2 series before. Love that one for the money. That's a great little assisted opening. Really nice little knife. Very lightweight. Good action. There's a couple others I've owned over the years. With regard, it's some of the SOG tax, like autos and stuff like that. But a lot of their knives just never really appealed to me. The one that did appeal to me was the SOG. When the Kiku first came out a few years ago, I looked at the blade. It was longer and thinner, but had that kind of a reverse belly to it. It's a drop point. It's not tanto, but it's like a drop point with like a little bit of a kukri kind of shape. Just looked like a really cool blade. And they wanted, I think they're even now like around $130 or $140. And I was like, all right, let me check one out. And when I checked it out, it just didn't look like a $140 knife. The blade was nice. It looked nice. The micarta handles were nice, but the liners were really thin. There was flex to it. It just didn't look to me like a $125 to $150 knife. And so I kind of passed on it, and I really haven't given SOG much of a look since, honestly. But I've been reading about how they've been trying to kind of reinvent themselves a little bit, getting a bit more premium, improving their steels, improving their designs, switching to this new, stronger lock, increasing materials. And we'll talk about whether this is a $180 knife or not, in my opinion. So the specs, again, real quick, 3-inch blade, 7 3/4 inch roughly overall, about 6 3/4 ounces. So it's fairly heavy, reversible pocket clip, really strong lock, CTS-XHP steel, 1.5 inch tall this way. It's plenty sharp. Let's see, do I need this? I just installed the Power Commander yesterday, and I already know how to do all that stuff. So yeah, I can go ahead and cut that. So out of the box, plenty sharp. You'll notice sometimes it'll move, and that's because you're transitioning. The angle of the blade changes. So when slicing paper, it's like effortless, and then it gets to that transition, and you have to change the blade just angle just a little bit because it's going from a bend this way to a bend in the opposite direction. But whoop, it's a nice sharp blade. It could probably be sharper. Someone's really good at sharpening could probably take a strop to it or something like that. But for out of the box, it's not the sharpest knife that I've had, but it's plenty sharp. You can almost shave with that. This is designed a little bit more for hard use. It's a very thick, brawny blade, so that edge geometry might be a little less refined than some other knives that are just amazing slicers. So why I got this was normally the 3-inch blade mark is okay. I usually tend to go more towards 3.5 for a pocket knife because I have large hands, and so being able to fit my hand on it, 3-inch blades typically have handles that are too short or they're just too small this way, and so your hand almost gets cramped trying to pinch something that small. I can make a joke there where I'm used to gripping something bigger, but so it really came down to ergonomics. The 3-inch blade is probably around the best size for a pocket knife, but the handles aren't usually proportional. They are proportional, which means they're not proportional to my hand. This thing, my hand fits perfectly. You've got a good groove here. You've got stippling that's aggressive enough, but not overly aggressive, but you can definitely feel that. The micarta has grip. You've got the flipper acts as a stop, so your hand doesn't want to slide up. Your pinky's not left dangling. This actually curves back this way instead of curving out this way, so it doesn't cut into your finger. That facilitates a really good, positive, secure, full grip on a 3-inch blade. Like I said, 1/8 inch thick. It's a very solid knife. It's sharp enough. I like the feel of that. That is a knife where you could use it for basic things, opening packages, cutting rope, but also, if you needed something where you needed a strong blade, something that you could really work on, I feel like this is going to hold up. I mean, there's no play. The pivot on this isn't even broken in. Watch this. So the blade actually goes whoop, whoop, back and forth. Like, it's that loose. It's on ceramic ball bearings. You can open it that way. You can just flick it open. I'm sure once it breaks in, the only friction on that is, this is under spring tension. And so the locking bar in there, you can see right there, that moves. That's riding on the back of the blade. So any burrs, any imperfections will just get smoothed out over time. So that action on the flipper should just get smoother and smoother, but this is a brand new knife. But you can see just how loose that is when you pull that locking bar out of the way and the blade is allowed to just free fall on those bearings. Really good tight action. Really like that. I love this blade shape. Good strong piercing. It goes down. It's not a super fine tip like you might find on something like Spyderco PM2. This is going to be a better slicer, but this will slice well enough. If you're going to slice an apple or food or something, that flat ground, that really thin blade, flat grind all the way up to the top, yeah, that's going to be a better slicer. But if I was going to really get in and use it hard and getting into wood or something like that, where I was having to do a little bit of wrenching or something, I feel like this would snap way before that. Not to say this isn't a strong knife. It is. Well, I guess we'll leave that up for size comparison. So got your Spyderco Paramilitary 2. I tried to pick some knives that are around the same size, but also in the same price range, because we're going to talk about that in a moment. I've got 2 entries from Steel Will. I've got the Tasso with just about a 3.5 inch blade, and I've also got my Mini Gecko lockback, which has a 3.5 inch blade. This blade, so you've got your Paramilitary 2 has CPM S30V, so good steel. You've got N690CO, great steel. You've got Bowler M390. So all these knives in here, they're comparable steels. Some are better at some things. Some are, maybe some are slightly better for corrosion resistance. Others might, be easier to sharpen. But these are all in the class of what you would consider premium steels. So I don't feel like the SOG falls short at all. The one thing that I was wondering was about the price compared to some of the other SOGs, based on what I found with the original Kiku, that just was not worth, to me, the money when you looked at how it was put together, is the fit and finish. Is this a $180 knife the way that these are? This is, I think, around 150 or 60. This one probably 180, 190 these days. You could pick these up for around 150. So this is kind of right in the middle of that price point, that 150 to 200 price point. Is it warranted? Well, from materials, from how strong it looks to be built, from the amount of the quality of the ergos, the micarta, you look at that and say yes. I would say that when you look at it as far as, those little extra touches, See the way that the back of this blade is perfectly beveled. There's more machining on things like that. Instead of having a plastic or a G10, that might be G10, that sits over the internal mechanism, this is just really nicely machined. The edges are all perfectly chamfered and beveled. The blades are at a higher state of polish. Same thing here, even not just the blade back here, but even down in here. There was just a lot of extra attention that went into really rounding this off and making this nice and pretty while being good quality materials and useful. The Spyderco, not so much. I would say when you look at the fit and finish, it's probably more on par with the Spyderco. And as far as just that little extra nice touch, it's a step down from the steel wheels. Now, those are aesthetics. Those are things that are nice and they make it look prettier and they make it feel premium. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work any better. I mean, I would say that this knife is going to work at least as well, if not better than any of those. So from a sheer toughness and quality of materials and the strength of which it looks to be put together, this will stand toe to toe with any of them. It just may not look as pretty. So when you think about it, is it worth a $180 knife? It just depends on your view. Some people are more collectors and they want the knife that is beautiful and elegant and things like that. And so those little extra details feel nice in the hand, but it doesn't really make it perform any better. I mean, let's be honest. It's just a nice touch. It's a nice aesthetic. And for a hard use knife, maybe it doesn't make sense to do those things, right? Maybe you're going to beat the shit out of it anyway. So anyway. So has SOG hit the mark here for upping their game, upping the price correspondingly, and kind of making a more premium offering here that really is meant, you look at their marketing on their website and it's like, everything's geared towards the operator. I don't know how many of the SOG knives are actually used by operators. Maybe some do. They certainly have some nicer higher end knives, but it seems like they're delivering here. They actually put some thought into this. They actually said, okay, what matters? The steel, we'll upgrade that. Let's go with the micarta handles. Let's put some real steel, much thicker liners in here so that there's no flex. It's going to add some weight, like I said, about 6 3/4 ounces. But in a small knife like that slides right in the pocket, I don't even notice it. I've already got a Glock 29 loaded up with 10 millimeter on my hip anyway, so a couple more ounces doesn't really make a difference. The lock is very nice. It's very smooth. The action out of the box, just look at that. It's just beautiful. The flipper action is nice. And those ergos, this is where they nailed it. This is pretty good, but front to back for my hands, I'm gripping it a little tight. And that edge right there, they could have beveled that a little nicer. That point, I don't know if you can see that point right there, kind of digs into that finger a little bit. I almost want to take, and this is G10, so the beauty of the G10 is I could take my Dremel and just radius that edge with a little round stone wheel and just kind of and hit that, and then just wipe it down with a rag, and it won't look. It's not like plastic or something where you're going to see it's black and then it's gray where you ground it away and you ruin the finish. It's G10. That's the beauty of G10 is you can very easily modify it. So I'm actually going to take that nubbin off just a little bit. My finger will still go in there and lock in, but that point right there digs into that finger. And if I were to stab into something or do something, if I grip this knife tightly, it's leaving. You can see those little indentations right there. That's literally digging into my finger. So this doesn't have that. And that's a mistake a lot of companies make with these flippers. I've had some Kaisers that were beautiful, except they hurt me to use them because that thing hooked back towards you. This moves away. It's rounded away from your finger. So it provides the job without being painful. So I think ergonomically, it's better, but because it's thicker, it just fits my hand better than any of these. These are all great knives. You could certainly use them. They don't really have hot spots. Very good ergonomics on all of these. This just kind of takes it to another level in a smaller, although heavier, to be fair, but brawnier, more heavy use package. So far with this, I'm very impressed. I love that action. Now the flipping it, because it's short and because you don't have, well, that'll just wear in. The bearings are nice and smooth, as you can see. But when you want to close that, you don't even have to do the flick like on this. And so the other ones, you can push the lock in and then you can flick it and it wants to come in. So this one actually probably is the closest. the Spyderco. But even there, I have to, it's still, I'm pushing that lock all the way in. It's still not, it's loose, but see how I'm having to like really shake it to get it to move? And then you go, whoop. It's an amazing action. It's amazing action, amazing ergos. I feel like that is anything, if you want to change to reverse grip, I never even tried it with that. That's nice too, because there's some knives where that edge is rounded in the wrong direction, or it comes to a point, like it's got a glass breaker, which sounds like a good idea, but I don't know how often you ever use that. But if you wanted to use it this way for some reason, your thumb just curls and lays right over that and makes contact with your finger. That is a really comfortable grip. Even look at this, at least for my hands, that thing about hot spots in the clip, they put it there so that your finger lines up perfectly with that. My middle finger is laying right in that groove, and then that finger's on top. That is probably one of the most comfortable reverse grips I've ever felt. There's no hot spots. There's nothing pointing in my fingers or into my thumb. I'm impressed with this. This is a cool knife. That's probably going to make it into heavily into my everyday rotation. I carry the Elementum if I'm dressed in slacks. That's a very nice, sleek, I guess I already put it away. Very nice, sleek little knife. Little more office friendly, you know. This looks like a fighting knife. It might raise an eyebrow if you pull that open to open a package or something. Whereas the Elementum, doesn't look that bad. This is kind of big, so it does stand out, but it's a great knife. It's probably the best. I'll never get rid of this. Paramilitary 2 is probably one of the best all-around pocket knives. But these are the guys are no slouches. Still will make some cool stuff. And they got some $50 knives too. But things like I said, I could nitpick if I wanted. When I look at the finish on those blades and the polish, but maybe on a very what's designed as a utilitarian, heavy duty, tactical, whatever you want to call it. I hate using that word because it sounds like you're just being a mall ninja. But that's what they're marketing it as, so I guess the term fits. I guess for that, you don't have to have the brightest, polished, most perfectly beveled. I mean, it's all nice. The machining's great. It just doesn't have those extra nice touches there. But for this kind of knife, it probably doesn't matter. But that is the new SOG Kiku XR. Nice flipper, just spot on ergos, man. That is phenomenal. I can grip that as tight as I want, and it's comfortable. There's nothing pushing into my hand. There's nothing that's biting me. I could go and stab that into a tree or something as hard as I wanted, and I don't feel like that's going to go anywhere or hurt my hand at all. So very cool. So hopefully this redo works better. Like I said, the first one was just out of focus slightly. It wasn't out of focus for some reason. Just the quality. Just when I zoomed out on the video, I zoomed out to like 0.8, and it just wasn't. It let me fit more on here, so I didn't worry about if I was holding something and like here the blade goes off screen. I'm having to be a little more mindful, but I'm getting much better views. I'm getting much better. Look here. Let's see the blade centering. It's right there, man. No rubbing, nothing. Nice action. Sweet knife. Check them out. SOG has seriously upped their game here. They made a big difference. They gave it some price to go with it, but I think it's worth it. I think that's a cool knife.